Fans of the animated sci-fi series Final Space, rejoice! Finally, we have some good news about the show's continuation, where something is confirmed to be happening, albeit in a medium that, to be honest, I did not expect, and I know a lot of fans are slightly disappointed about. I don't think disappointed is necessarily the correct wording, but Olin Rogers, the creator of the show, announced on his YouTube channel and various other social media platforms that Warner has given him a one-off license to conclude this wonderful animated show in the form of a graphic novel, which at least is something. He's certainly not been ungrateful about it. I really do admire just how flamboyant he is about all the good things to come in terms of what is next for Final Space and how he can conclude this in another medium and what sort of restrictions are there and how he doesn't see those. He sees so much potential and opportunity going forward, and I really do love that about the creator himself and how he's so positive despite being treated so poorly by Warner Brothers in particular. And so to kind of fill in the blanks as to what's been happening behind the scenes, Olin Rogers, the show creator, had a planned 6-season arc for this animated show, and sadly, he only got the opportunity to tell half of that, where the show was cancelled after 3 seasons, and this was due to the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, which I've made a whole rant video discussing in further detail if you want to check that out on the channel, where the short of it is, animation is expensive. This isn't the only project that was affected by this, but many of the projects that were impacted by the merger were animated shows, and just with how expensive animation is, this is likely the reason why the show was written off in the first place. But to completely destroy a man's creation to the point of it being essentially erased from public viewing is just so saddening. The only legal way to view this show is on any remaining streaming service that it's on until the licenses expire, where the show is slowly vanishing, and of course the Blu-ray release, which is only the first 2 seasons of the show. There was never a 3rd season release, and I'm still currently working on a custom Blu-ray set of Series 3 to have that in my collection, since I do love the show so much, and it would be great to have the entirety of it on Blu-ray for what is fully animated of the show. I've always found Olin to be a very admirable figure in the animation industry and someone that comes off as extremely approachable and very charismatic and really does care about the projects that he has. And for the way he was treated by the various studios, it almost felt as though this was personal, deliberately making things as difficult as possible for those involved with the show, and obviously the fans who suffer in turn with no new content to look forward to. And the way Season 3 ended on a cliffhanger was brutal enough, where the main character Gary and the others were stuck fighting the main villain Invictus, who had been freed, who is the evil force that escapes Final Space, and he even manages to corrupt one of the side characters, Ash, making a very fun, twisted dynamic for her character, something that I know many people were looking forward to exploring in more thorough detail. Will she now side with Invictus, or will she eventually be redeemed? That is the question, and of course, poor Mooncake, one of the main characters and arguably the catalyst of this entire show. What will happen to him, where he was very much on the brink of death by the end of the 3rd season? Overall, there was so much emotional complexity to appreciate and so many offshoots of potential storylines going forward, which really makes you wonder just how difficult it's going to be to wrap up all of this stuff in one final chapter. And Olin Rogers is certainly the man to do it, especially with just how many ideas he has kind of teased over these past couple of years as to what was going to happen going forwards with Final Space. And in the meantime, even though it looks as though it's the end for the show in animation form, that doesn't mean he's given up at all, obviously going as far as teasing these ideas, utilizing some of them for his Godspeed series, which I'll talk about briefly in just a moment, and obviously wanting to wrap up this show as neatly as he possibly can. And that's where Rogers has been poking various suits at Warner, begging them to let him finish his story in one format or another, where the circumstances just didn't make this look to be a possibility at all. It looked as though it was impossible, if nothing else, but finally we do have some good news to discuss, which is where this video is going, where Olin released his own video on his YouTube channel, which if you're a fan of comedy, in particular, especially his style, along with animation, definitely consider subscribing to him. He has some excellent content available, including an ongoing guide as to how to actually create an animated show, which again delves into a lot of the behind-the-scenes kind of stuff of what he experienced when making Final Space. And in this new video, he is quoted saying that he was ready to fight this as long as it took, that the fight finally ended last week where Warner Bros. Discovery gave him a license to make one graphic novel. Just one Final Space graphic novel to end this story. And of course, a graphic novel is not necessarily what we expected, as I certainly didn't expect this to be the ending to such a beloved show. At the very least, I was hoping for a TV movie, which would have been fair enough in my eyes to wrap up the show, and generates more money for everybody involved and pleases the fanbase, etc. But as it currently stands, we're not in the times anymore of pleasing fans, unfortunately. This is certainly a cutthroat world in terms of corporate greed, something that sadly is still ongoing with various networks, regardless of whether it's Warner, Disney, Netflix, etc. No matter what, somebody is going to get hurt, and that's just all the more frustrating for those of us that just want to see good content. Looking at the graphic novel idea objectively and what expectations Olan Rogers has for this project going forward, just seeing so much opportunity, you can guarantee this is going to be a thick book. Olan expects this graphic novel to be at the very least over 500 pages long, and looking into this further, the agreement with Warner did come with several strings attached, a lot of restrictions, and I like to think Warner came up with these ideas honestly just to make this project all the more difficult, but instead, I genuinely feel this has backfired on Warner and will continue to do so. Never underestimate a dedicated fanbase, and already the positivity is screaming from how well this project is doing thus far. So what exactly are the restrictions with this? Well, Olan can only self-publish the book, meaning he is only allowed to sell this through his own personal website, and he can't use third-party websites such as Amazon as an example to sell this, so he's got to use all of his own resources, which is already difficult in of itself. And surprisingly, there is already a pre-order available for the graphic novel at the web address finalspaceends.com. And with this in mind also, he can't crowdfund the book for a Kickstarter either. All of this has got to be off his own back, from his own pockets. And I feel this restriction was set because of just how overwhelming the amounts of support and money that he got from the Godspeed series Kickstarter. This is an independent side project that was released shortly after the cancellation of Final Space, which is still ongoing. I believe this project has now entered the animation phase, and really did show the strength of the Final Space fandom. And so, thinking about it, if this got enough public attention, maybe somebody at Warner would at the very least listen and consider making an animated continuation of Final Space. At least that was hinted at from Olan himself in his YouTube video. Personally, I don't think anything of the sort would ever happen, but you never know is my point, and fingers crossed something more will come of this in the near future. And so by going down the self-publishing route, it can only be made available as a physical hard copy. There can be no digital editions made, nor can we get a version read aloud by Olan and the other voice actors, and so in short, he's not permitted to create anything in relation to what was the original show. He can't use voices or animation of the characters to promote it. As you can see, things are becoming very much claustrophobic. Just think about it, if the fans are wild enough to fund nearly $500,000 on the Godspeed series, just think how much Olan could have made funding an animated end to Final Space. The possibilities really would have been endless to an extent. And I just love the confidence behind this. He's taking full responsibility for all aspects of this deal, bending it slightly to his favour to suit the vision for the ending to this show. There were 10,000 hardcover copies of Final Space, the final chapter, listed on the website, with plans to deliver them in late 2024, possibly at this point even 2025. Nothing is set in stone, and there's no exact specified date as to when the actual graphic novel itself will be completed, but parameters change with things like this all the time as the project continues to grow, and this book is not cheap. At $125 a copy, plus shipping to the UK, which I calculated it was roughly about £40. And I believe Olan is looking into the logistics of shipping to try and make this more accessible worldwide. But as of the time of recording this video, there are less than 1,000 copies available, meaning over 9,000 copies of the Final Space ending have sold before anything has even been committed to paper. And I genuinely think Warner have made a mistake on this part by underestimating the fan community for Final Space and just not taking advantage of producing at least one final special to conclude such a fantastic show, where they really could have made a hell of a lot of money off an ending to this, and also made everybody happy in the process. Wrapping up this video, there is definitely a lot to appreciate about this victory, and I'm thinking there will be a lot more about this project to come in the near months. Already we have a rough outline as to what to expect with the final chapter, and we see that Daz Tibbles, who has illustrated this wonderful front cover art, is somebody that Olin Rogers is considering for illustrating the whole project, which would be absolutely phenomenal if this art style continued seeing what we have got from the cover. And so, with this, I'm thinking there will be a lot more to come from this project as the months progress, maybe even one day we'll see this animated, who knows? All I can say is that if you do have the money, definitely consider supporting the project. I can't see this being capped at 10,000 copies. It's been just over 24 hours, and the project is near enough sold out before any actual physical product has been produced. So for sure, Warner has definitely underestimated the fans. Olin Rogers himself has definitely underestimated the power of the fans and how much people the demand there is for the Final Space series to continue, and fingers crossed we will get more from this wonderful show going forward in the near future. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave me a like down below. If you're a fan of the show, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments. As always, I love hearing from you folks. And for more content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Are you threatening me?